and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by sweet Shansa Kovacs from the internet.
TikTok, suckers!
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and we've got another donkey show.
Oh, my gosh. Let me tell you.
Do we ever?
We will get
For the record,
into
I had no idea how donkey-centric this plot would be when I recommended this last week.
That's got to be a load of crap.
I find that very hard to believe, Mr. Leslie.
Oh. I'm sitting there watching this thing, and all I can go is, Bruce.
I was thinking, now
Bruce.
that's what I'd call a brainy burrow.
Oh, my gosh. And we'll get into all the brainy burrow action here because Lord knows there is some.
There's a lot.
I can't believe how much we're going to talk about a stupid flipping donkey. But today we're discussing the Wonder Woman you weren't quite aware existed. That's Wonder Woman from 1974 starring Kathy Lee Crosby. And, everybody thinks, oh, Gal Gadot, we got, what's her nose there? You know, the other Wonder Woman, the lesser Wonder Woman, Lynda something or other. I don't know.
How dare you?
Lynda Hamilton.
Lynda Hamilton as this
You
Wonder
both,
Woman.
I swear, I'm going to take you out back and beat the hell out of both of you.
Oh, nobody loves Lynda Carter more than me. I had a blood test that proved it and everything.
A blood test that proved it.
Pulls out some paperwork.
And this is why I'm not allowed 50 feet within Lynda Carter's presence.
I've never seen the blood type Carter positive before, but you have it, sir.
Turns out you're pure Carter positive. Oh, no. But yeah, so we'll be covering Wonder Woman from 1974. But before we get into that, though, do want to say thank you to everyone who supports this show over at patreon.com/HMP. When you do that, you get the pre-show, post-show, and, of course, the Dinger Zone. We had an extra long Dinger Zone this week. Holy moly. So check it out, man. It's not a bad time. Well worth the effort, I would say.
Trying to come up with names for our new show.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Some of it a little bit more difficult than you might imagine. But here's the thing. If you can't help support the show over at patreon.com/HMP, one of the things that you can do is help review us on iTunes. And I happen to have an iTunes review here. It's been quite some time, but this is a 5-star.
5 stars?
5-star.
It's a humdinger.
AKA Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And this one comes to us from Big Tex Rich. And it says, long live HMP, 5 stars. And it reads as follows. Just wanted to take a minute to tell you guys how much I love what you're doing. I love the Stallone connection. I love listening to the comic book connection. And I even love Adam's fake movie trailers. He really wrote that. I'm not just saying it. Have you guys ever thought about bringing back fake sponsor ads? Super smart Dolph Lundgren promoting Huggies was hilarious. I hope that we have many more years of listening to you guys talk about superhero movies. Thanks for making the drive to work a little bit better. And that's from Big Tex Rich, 5 stars, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
Rich, we'd like to thank you for that
Big
review,
Tex.
man.
Big Tex Rich.
And, you can do that. That's how you get the show out here. If you can't help on Patreon, give us a review, tell some friends. You know how all this sort of stuff works. But let's go ahead and, before we get into this, let's listen to my fake trailer here, because I was told it was pretty good. I just, the guy just said.
Oh, who told you that?
Big Tex Rich. I have to watch that, otherwise I might say something dirty. But let's go ahead and listen to the fake trailer for Wonder Woman. In a world of infinite crisis on infinite television shows and movies comes a vision our world never knew existed. Gal Gadot? Not quite. Lynda Carter? Not even close. Kathy Lee Crosby lights up the screen in this wide world of mystery as Wonder Woman, who despite everything to the contrary, is Wonder Woman. Will she stare into the middle distance long enough to stop evil Ricardo Montalban? Does it really even matter? There's a donkey in it! That's right, Bruce picked another donkey flick. Wonder Woman. On this earth, Wonder Woman is a blonde. Rated nothing because this isn't a movie. Alrighty, that is the fake trailer.
Now, hold on. I've got to ask Sean a question.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Did Adam kind of sound in that trailer like he was trying to record it without anybody overhearing what he was doing?
What are you talking about?
I don't know. It just, I like pictured him, something about the tone of your voice, Adam. I pictured you like looking over your shoulder, hoping nobody was going to hear you.
Because he's kind of whispering. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like you're on the bus and you're not supposed to be recording on the bus, but you're trying to get away with it.
Right. It's the thing that drives me crazy when you're listening to podcasts and somebody is like pretending, like feigning that they're angry and they're not actually yelling. Yeah.
I am so mad.
Guys, I'm so mad right now.
Well, here's the thing. I've been like, I've had a couple of the fake trailers, and I'm trying not to do my stupid voice over and over again. And
you're doing good. Look, man, I know what you're doing. You're trying to branch out, and I love it.
I'm trying to switch it up a little.
I just kind of got like the feeling like this was something you're trying to record and get back to America before the Russians catch you.
You're doing a wonderful job, Adam, and I know I don't say that enough.
I can't believe
wonderful job.
The world is topsy turvy here. Bruce is telling me to pound Sam. Sean's saying good job. I don't know what to think. Black is white. Red is...
Look. What I hate. What I hate the most. I hate repetition, and I hate having the same exact joke said to me over and over again. Says the guy who has the Stallone connection. But listen.
Be that as it may.
I like that you're trying to make you're trying to make your borders further, and I love it. Good job for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm not one to throw stones. Not saying I live in a glass house, but I did record part of an audiobook with a bucket on my head because I can't do voices.
Yeah, I mean the kid puts a bucket on his head. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? All right.
So, let's get into this, guys, because I love this show so much. I love this show so much. I love how wrong-headed it is. I love every choice they make is wrong, and it's perfect. I like the fact that I have no idea what's happening half the time watching the show. Does everyone know that she's Wonder Woman or not? Like, what's going on here?
I'm not convinced she knows she's Wonder Woman. Does anyone call her Wonder Woman at any point?
Everyone keeps calling her D for some reason.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so great. Let's get into it. I'm sorry.
All right, before we do, you're pulling in Adam here, and that's not good because we do have one more important thing to do before we get into this.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Who is that sultry voice devil?
I don't know, but I'll say this. This is probably our going to be our best comic book connection ever because this is so one-to-one to books. It's going to be amazing. Bruce, what do you got?
When William Moulton Marston died in 1947, Robert Kanigher took over the duties of writing Wonder Woman. And he continued to stick around the title as editor after that. Kanigher stuck closely to the original vision of Wonder Woman. But all that changed in 1968 when swingin' Denny O'Neil took over the editorial duties for the Amazonian hero. Under O'Neill's direction, Diana Prince became the new Wonder Woman. And what was new about Wonder Woman, you might ask? Well, for starters, Diana Prince gave herself a mod makeover. And I don't mean Maude, the B. Arthur character. I'm talking about Maude, M-O-D. And the mod makeover was an obvious case of Wonder Woman trying to ride on the coattails of the success of the Avengers. But not the Marvel Comics team, the Avengers, but the British television show featuring Emma Peel dressed in the hottest mod fashions.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for those youngsters who may not be familiar with the mod look, mod was a subculture that began in London in 1958 and spread throughout Great Britain and elsewhere, eventually influencing fashions and trends in other countries. It was described as a fashion-obsessed and hedonistic culture of the hypercool for young adults. The ladies were referred to as, and I quote, mini-skirted, booted, fair-haired, angular angels. What this meant to Wonder Woman is that she now wore more colorful, super short mini dresses over leggings with boots instead of her iconic costume. Just picture the ladies from Laugh-In, but with less skin. And yep, always a good idea to reference Laugh-In when you're trying to describe something to young folks. Now, her costume wasn't the only thing that changed. The Amazons claimed they needed to leave this world for another dimension in order to renew their magic. And Diana renounced her powers and Wonder Woman identity in order to remain with Steve Trevor. So what is Wonder Woman to do if she no longer has superpowers? Kung Fu, naturally. Steve Trevor was kidnapped by the evil Dr. Cyber, who is an international terrorist. During this adventure, Diana Prince met and befriended blind martial arts expert I Ching, who trained her in Asian martial arts, which Diana, of course, as an Amazon, quickly mastered. When Steve Trevor was killed off in the comics, Diana left the military and opened a mod boutique in New York City. This led to stories in which she had to come up with excuses to leave her shop in order to take on secret missions. According to the new writer and artist Mike Sikowski, the reason for the change was, quote, the sales on the old Wonder Woman were so bad that the book was going to be dropped. The new Wonder Woman was given a chance, at least a last chance for the book, and it worked, end quote. In 1973, the non-powered Diana Prince era ended as abruptly as it had started. Robert Kanigher returned as the book's editor and declared a stop be put to the foolishness of the past 5 years. He killed off I Ching in a way nearly as ridiculous as how Poochie was written out of Itchy and Scratchy. He had a sniper shoot a guy who was driving a car, then he had the car run out of control and crash into a restaurant and smoosh I Ching to death while he was eating lunch with Diana. The crash also gave Diana amnesia, which caused her to forget all about the past 5 years. Somehow the crash also caused all her superpowers to come back, but don't ask too many questions. Now, reportedly, feminist advocate Gloria Steinem complained about the depowering of Wonder Woman, and this, combined with his attachment to the original concept of Wonder Woman, is the justification Kanigher used to return the character back to her traditional depiction. The abrupt return of the character to her golden age depiction in 1973 makes it seem all the more odd that when a television show went into development, or at least a pilot did, only a year later, they went with the depowered mod version of the First Lady of comic books. Hindsight is 20/20, as they say, but I would say the failure of this pilot to be picked up, combined with the runaway success of Lynda Carter's depiction of the character only 2 years later, would prove as evidence that the audience at large prefers the fierce Amazonian super warrior to the leisure suit wearing kung fu princess.
And as we said, this is in 1974. It is directed by Vincent McEverly. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Kathy Lee Crosby. I can't talk today.
McAvity.
Kaz
I
Grass.
like Crosby.
And Andrew Pine and Ricardo Montalban. And you know what I found out with this is Andrew Pine is Rick Dalton. Because...
Who's Rick Dalton?
Well, in Quentin Tarantino's movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's who he's basing it on, Andrew Pine?
I'm just saying, when you look through Andrew Pine's career, he is Rick Dalton. He's done everything. He was that guy who was doing Westerns, back in the 60s and everything. And this was, part of his career.
So what was his big role?
He had done a lot of horror movies I saw, and he did like sequels, not like he wasn't in the Amityville Horror, but he was in the Amityville Horror Part 2.
Well, he was in the town.
He's not really like Rick Dalton because he doesn't have that big show where he was like the big star.
Well, no, he wasn't the big star or anything, but he did have I'm just saying from starring on everything from from this to he had an episode of Kung Fu. And then there was he was on FBI, just like Rick Dalton. He had movies like Grizzly and a couple other things, but he just had a very big career. He had 2 episodes of Lancer back in the day. I'm just saying it was a varied career that was kind of like that, where he was one of those TV guys who would occasionally do some movies, but never really broke out as his own big thing. But he has that
no Robert Conrad here.
No, not exactly. But so this was initially a pilot, right?
Yes, this was packaged as a pilot. They were hoping this would get picked up, and that this would be the tone of the Wonder Woman TV show instead of the Wonder Woman TV show we all know. This was their first stab at it, and Warner Brothers had acquired the rights at this point. But the TV, I'm trying to remember which network this was being shown
ABC.
on, but there was some disagreement between Warner Brothers and the network about how to pursue it, too.
Yeah, this was on ABC. In my trailer there, I mentioned the Worldwide of Mystery, and that's what this was actually, the banner this was put underneath.
I know it was a Tuesday night movie of the week kind of thing. It came on a Tuesday night, I read. My big curious question for both of you, have either of you seen this movie before?
No, this is the first time.
How about you, Adam?
Not at all.
I saw this movie probably 30 years ago. I saw this sometime in the 80s, late 80s. And I used to have this weird video rental store that had like stuff, like they had a superhero section that I think they put up because it was about the time that Burton's Batman was a big deal in theaters. So they were trying to give the home rental people any kind of superhero thing they could. So they had like Christopher Reeve's Superman movies and then a bunch of stuff like this, because that's where I saw a lot of these things that were made for TV before I was old enough to view them. And this was not something that I think ever got replayed. But I know that I saw this when I was about 15, I would say.
Did you know and you knew Kathy Lee Crosby from That's Incredible, I'm guessing.
Yes. I was a That's Incredible watcher when I was like 4, 5, 6 years old.
That was going to be
nothing like watching eye surgery on That's Incredible.
That was my next question, was because I come from a time where I just passed Kathy Lee Crosby. The name, I know the name, but the face and everything doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. And so that's why I was going to ask where was kind of her big thing.
Well, she was a professional tennis player, too, before she went into entertainment.
Right. And she was considered at the time, I don't know because it's before my time, but she was considered like, oh, man, she's really good looking, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, she was. And building on that, I also knew her because she made this movie in the 70s called Coach that I was under the impression when I was young it was like a raunchy comedy is what I thought, and I was never allowed to watch it. And then at some point when I was old enough to finally watch Coach, it was neither that raunchy nor that funny. It was one of those things, because I wasn't allowed to watch it, I really wanted to. And if they had just let me watch it, I would have fallen asleep in the first 7 minutes, But it is from the 70s, similar plot to you remember the Goldie Hawn movie Wildcats from like the late 80s, early 90s?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, well, she was hired to be a basketball coach for a high school basketball team. Like her first name was Randy, so they thought she was a guy when they hired her. And then they hire her, and it's like because they signed the contract, they can't fire her until she gets at least one season. And of course, she coaches them to like the championship or something like that. But she also has a love affair with one of her high school students that she's coaching. So there's the part like not going to happen if they make that movie now.
Frowned upon.
And Michael Biehn was that high school student. So
man alive.
Let me tell you, she can pick him.
Watch Coach. It's boring, but you can watch it.
She could do worse. So let's get into it, because I got to get into it because I love this show so much. Like it is one of my favorite things we've watched this year. I love it so much.
There's so much I love about even just how it starts. Like there's really no introduction.
No, she's like on the phone with somebody talking.
There's so much.
I think the first thing I can remember seeing, and I know some other stuff probably happens, but the first thing I remember seeing is these two people on screen that I'm just going to call the Weirdo Twins. And you know who the Weirdo Twins are.
Yeah.
Right.
I never caught
Which is another thing. Why do they look exactly the same? Because one is a woman and one is a man. I never said that was a great idea. Don't get me wrong. I think it's an amazing idea.
Same outfits,
it's just so weird
because
they never did anything like that in the 70s. It's so crazy.
And it's never significant. Like they could have looked totally different. Right. They could have both been women, both been men. Like I felt like they were really saving something up for the next episode that we never got to.
It's almost like something that you would see on Legion.
And because I never caught their name, I gave them the perfect name, Tomax and Zaymot.
Oh, that is a great name.
Two bad haircuts, one lady, one man,
and with the like really crappy leather jackets from the 70s, they have those too.
And were they turtlenecks, black turtlenecks?
Oh man, don't even get me started with those.
This movie is all about extremes on either side, because we have turtleneck over here, but we also on the other side of the coin here we have shirt down so far and gold medallions hanging out with your hairy chest and everything. Oh, if we're going everywhere. I like it that the supervillains are actually stealing like hardbound books. Like that was the state of technology even in 1974 was at least microfiche or something. But they're actually stealing like hardback bound books that look like something you get at your local library.
And what is the name of the books? Like Big Secrets or something like that?
Honestly, yeah. One is Secret Identities, one is Secret Locations or something like that. And it's silly.
There's all these volumes, and it's just like, this is volume 9, this is volume 10, and everyone apparently has them. But this is the whole thing is the plot to the Mission Impossible movie, Brian De Palma's Mission Impossible.
Yeah. What was the name of the list? But that was like a computer program.
Yeah, that was the knock list, and so that's the difference. But this is essentially that same plot.
Only featuring hardbound phone books.
Hardbound Time Life books.
I started thinking in 1974, you probably had to be a bigwig to even get access to a Xerox. Because, if you want to do it right, you don't let them know you've stolen the books. You just go in, you make Xeroxes, and then you take the book back. But they stole the actual books. No encryption, I guess, on that book.
Got to literally lock up your books.
Oh, so funny. And this is like before any kind of superhero comic. I mean, even a spy movie these days, the motivation is not going to be a sack of money. You know what I mean? Even like Mission Impossible, even if they're trying to make a James Bond type movie, the bad guy's motivation in James Bond isn't going to be a sack of money. But I guess we haven't gotten there yet. But they're still in these books, not because they actually want the information. They want to ransom them back to the Secret Service or else sell them to the villains. Like, this is just a way to get what I would say is a modest amount of money.
Well, let's go backwards for a second, because I have a couple of questions.
Let's go.
She gets there's no other way to put it. She gets assaulted at work by that one guy who's making things very uncomfortable, and then for reasons I don't understand, kisses his finger and then touches her forehead with it.
Oh, it's so creepy.
It is super, super creepy. And is she dating Steve Trevor?
Again,
let's talk about this Steve Trevor, man. This is a weird guy playing Steve Trevor. He looks, first off, he should be like the bad guy in an episode of BJ and the Bear. Like, he looks like an evil trucker to me.
His hair is what makes that, I think. I think the hair is what gives him a weird kind of look that would not normally necessarily be in that role, I guess.
But is he dating her?
No, who knows? That's the problem with the whole show itself, is that there's so much that is unclear. There is so much that is not even. Listen, you don't have to telegraph stuff to us, but give us a hint, will you?
Now they give us a tiny glimpse of her on Themyscira. Like, they don't give us much in the way of an origin story or reasons for her motivation, but we do see her on Themyscira where she goes to talk to Hippolyta. And Hippolyta says, what does she say? You have to go to man's world for no, it's not like she went there because she was already in love with Steve Trevor or anything. We just hear somebody's got to go. It might as well be you, which is totally different from the Lynda Carter version where we saw her have to actually go undercover and win a contest to leave Paradise
you Blondie.
Island. Yeah. So we get a brief, just enough to let us know she's Amazonian, though it apparently doesn't mean anything really. But then
there's that weird. They use that weird, like a filter,
the Star Trek filter.
Yeah, sort of a fisheye thing.
But it's not even that, and it's like there's like some sort of like Vaseline on the lens or something. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's like they made a Vaseline donut on the lens because the center
it's so
part's
weird.
Yeah, and they don't even bother to frame the parts that are supposed to be clear in the center of the
some of
the
it.
lens,
Yeah,
it's
like the fact that she is talking in one of those shots and her mouth is completely blurred out because of this thing. It's like, you did not plan this very well, did you?
It's so good. It's so good. And here's another thing that I have a question about, because everywhere she goes, everyone stares at her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that
is a choice because everybody is on the show. So. She goes to the hotel, everyone's staring at her. She's walking down the street, everyone turns around and stares at her. Are they staring at her because she's so fine, or because she's Wonder Woman and everybody knows that she's Wonder Woman?
It's really...
I think it's because she's fine is supposed to be the reason.
But even women are turning around is the thing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, look at these
fine.
Look at these dudes, and even the ladies are like, oh, who is this? And you're just like, it's bizarre.
So it's because it's so we could have, if there was another episode, we could have totally gotten one of those things where guy has to take his hand and splay all his fingers and go whoo.
Yeah, we could have gotten that.
So hot, that kind of thing. But we didn't get that in this, and I feel cheated.
Man, yeah. What do you think about Kathy Lee Crosby as a choice for Wonder Woman? Going with the blonde first off, instead of the traditional dark-haired Wonder Woman. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that we have come a very, very long way, because that would not even make anyone blink anymore. That Wonder Woman's blonde. Who cares?
Yeah.
But which is because it shouldn't matter. But she is wrong for the role because she's just a terrible actress. But that's fine.
Yeah.
I love her anyway. I think she's great in this role because she's supposed to be so great. And I haven't seen anything that makes her great in this show.
I like it that they got an athlete, because there's a good chance that maybe they're not going to cast based on acting talent at this point in time. Right. So I think getting an athlete for a character as physically gifted as Wonder Woman is great. But then they give us a version of Wonder Woman who doesn't seem all that physically gifted.
Who doesn't really do a lot of physical activity.
Yeah, because, and there was a time when, way back when, what's the name of the Lindsay Wagner got cast as the Bionic Woman, and there were people that thought Kathy Lee Crosby should have been the Bionic Woman. If you really want to go back in time,
Lynda Wagner is a great actress.
Yeah, that's the difference. But Kathy Lee Crosby is easier to believe as an ex-tennis star who has all these super strength powers. But yeah, it comes down to the acting, and thank goodness it went the way it did. But she has an impressive physique because she's an athlete. They don't really ask her to do a whole lot that's athletic, though, and she kind of looks upset a lot. I know it's not a polite thing to do, and I don't want to judge people based on their looks. And I'm not saying it's attractive or unattractive, but she looks like one of my friends. Like when I was growing up, if my friend had a mom who was making that facial expression, I didn't want to go over to his house for any reason.
She's kind of got a little bit of rest and be. I mean, it's, it is what it is.
I don't want to use that term because that term, upsets some people. But man, she does look like if this were one of my friend's moms, I would be afraid of her as soon as I met her, because she definitely looks like she's getting ready to tell you you've done something wrong.
Well, she definitely has the furrowed brow for a lot of this. And what I can't tell is she doing it because she's trying to assess a situation or because it's making her mad? And that's probably bad that I'm thinking about things like that while I'm watching the show. Like, what is she going for here? Is she
angry? I watched That's Incredible, and she smiled. And also, it's very, very inappropriate to tell a woman she needs to smile more. So I don't want to say that.
Everyone
I'll say
should
she
smile
looked
more.
happy on That's Incredible. She didn't, and I think maybe this is her intense look. Like she's trying to play Wonder Woman as an intense secret agent. So that's the look that she went with. But it was a little. I don't know. I found it not suiting the character as well. And it's not, I'm sounding like the worst case scenario of a guy saying, why doesn't she smile more? So now I'm wishing I kept my mouth shut.
Okay. Let me stop all of this right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to keep talking about this throughout this entire episode. So let's just do what we have to do to make everything okay for everyone, so that we don't have to keep running into this thing where we have to be politically correct to a point where we can't even talk about a thing. Because one of the problems with this show is that they are trying to have the women empowerment thing without doing any of the women empowerment thing.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And so you have that like dumb 90s like Spice Girls girl power thing where there wasn't actually any girl power happening with that band, and that's what you have with this show. And so it's not like we're talking about Captain Marvel here, like Captain Marvel has its problems, but at least she gets to be a bad A, Like
and her intense look.
There's no moment in time in the show where you're like, oh, she is by far the toughest person on this show.
Hold on. Are you suggesting that maybe Brie Larson has more range than Kathy Lee Crosby?
Yes.
I am. I'm sorry, guys. I am saying that.
Controversial statements.
Also, I'm going to say the quality of this, knowing a little bit of this story behind filming this was a Tuesday night movie. It's not that hard for me to believe that she was maybe a little annoyed to even be there and that they weren't, working too hard on getting multiple takes to get the annoyed look off her face. Even.
All I look at when I see her doing all of this stuff, the thing that I can like hear her inner monologue going, acting. She's really just trying to convince herself that she is an actress and she's doing a really good job, and you end up looking like, you're lost or constipated.
And she doesn't have that look on her face of annoyance or cruelty or meanness or whatever I'm taking away from it at all in the movie Coach. So maybe she enjoyed that movie more.
You may be one of one when it like I don't know how many people listen to the show these days, but you might be the only person, is my guess. So look, I'm gonna get into some things here where it's gonna hit some people wrong. Probably, I don't care. I'm sorry if it hits you wrong, but look, here is the main issue, is that she is not an actress. They hire her on a show where she's got to do a lot of the heavy lifting, she's completely incapable of doing it. And that's what makes this show so great. And the weirdest part of all is that Lynda Carter did try out for this. She did audition to be this version of Wonder Woman and didn't get the role. And so they were definitely going for something else. They wanted to go with a tennis player, which is totally fine. She seems like a lovely person outside of work, but she is completely and woefully miscast in this role, which is why the thing doesn't work in the first place. Because yes, it's the wrong version of Wonder Woman, because everybody wants to see the actual Wonder Woman, not this terrible 70s knockoff of Wonder Woman. But that's kind of what makes it so great, is that they're going for like the Mod Squad. They're going for, like a James Bondish type of character. But the problem is that she doesn't have any of the oomph to make you go, oh wow, this person is a revelation as I'm watching this show.
And we're nowhere near where it's relevant to talk about her costume yet, but man, she takes a long time to ever unveil a costume. And honestly, I think the costume's fine, knowing the source material. I think it's kind of cool that we had a Wonder Woman in pants in 1974, and people lost their marbles about Adrian Palicki wearing pants in that pilot that never made it to air in what was that, about 2004 or something, Adam?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I think the costume's actually cool, and I wish
2011.
I wish we had some of the costume changes where, like, she puts on the costume, does some superhero stuff or some secret agent stuff or whatever you want to call it, then back in street clothes. I mean, I wish that the costume didn't just sort of all come out at the end and even then not quite make sense to explain why she would put one on if she hadn't needed one so far.
Well, and that's my question again. Why does she need the costume in the first place? Why does she put it on?
I have no idea, other than knowing that it's a pilot. They were probably going to want to use that every episode or something, so they wanted to introduce it here. But it makes no sense in the story. Something else that makes no sense to me. We've already talked about Andrew Prine. But when Wonder Woman first meets Andrew Prine and they're sitting down having dinner, and he propositions her to do the stuff, and he says that with the kind of confidence like usually ladies are into him. I don't think that there was ever a time in America when women were into Andrew Prine. George, his character's name is George. Like, yeah, George. I just can't picture ladies getting in line for a chance to go out with George.
Well, the whole thing is so that she can slam him, because here's the whole quote. It's, "Let me make love to you." And then Wonder Woman says, "Why?" And he goes, "Because your eyes reach into my," and then she goes, "You misunderstood me. I didn't mean why should you want to. I meant why should I?" And so that's about the biggest slam that Wonder Woman gives in this entire hour long thing.
And his reaction is as if that's the first time he's ever been rejected. But look at the guy. Look at his haircut, for heaven's sake.
Super handsome. Is that what you're talking about?
Dude, he's kind of got a Fonda look about him. He's not.
He does not, man. This guy. This guy is not selling me as a roguishly good-looking villain. He's no Ricardo Montalban. I'll tell you that right now.
Definitely not Ricardo Montalban. However, he does have something. He's got a little bit of that 70s hey, you know what he's like? He's like Michael York, where Michael York, for some reason, was considered a really good-looking guy in the 70s, even though he's not at all. And he has that same quality to him.
I think he's more like Dick York, but that's, Dick York with long hair.
That's 2 weeks in a row with a Dick York joke.
Hey, what can I say? I like Dick York better than Dick Sargent. I said it.
Controversial statements here on HMP. This is why we've been around as long as we have.
And still keep it in line with George and what kind of villain George is. He goes to great lengths to arrange an assassination by snake. And I'm just going to go on the record as saying assassination by snake seems very inefficient to me.
Hey, maybe that's what we call the Watchmen podcast. Assassination by snake.
I like that. But I mean, for all the expense and trouble he went to make sure to get that snake in her room in a little remote controlled box where he can push the button and the door comes open, couldn't you have done like a bomb just as easily?
Well, how about the way that she undoes the snake trick?
What in the world?
I'm not done talking about how unreliable snakes are as weapons. We'll get to how she undoes it, but I don't think you can really train a snake. And I've been to pet shops that have like snakes you can buy, and they're in their little like aquarium looking thing, and they're always like, yeah, they're always like coiled up inside this hollow ceramic log. Like you can never actually see the snake, and they don't seem interested in coming out of the cozy area. So I picture you try to assassinate somebody with a snake, you push the remote, the door opens, and they just go deeper into the shadow.
I'm not getting out of this heat lamp. Y'all can forget it.
I don't think they're reliable to attack unprovoked. I've always been taught if you leave snakes alone, they'll leave you alone.
I don't know that that's 1,000% true.
Well, this snake seems to want to like he's in a constrictor that's about the size of a cat's tail, because it doesn't seem interested in biting her. It's just going to clamp around her ankle so tightly that the blood can't get down to her foot and then back to her brain, and eventually she'll die, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was very confused about. It's like, are you just wanting to put her foot to sleep? What's going on?
And then now we can talk about how she solves this problem, Sean. You want to tell us what, in case anyone right now is listening with a snake trying to kill you by wrapping itself around your calf. Here's what you need to do. Tell them how to save their lives, Sean.
She does a rap about how snakes shouldn't kill humans.
No, none of these snakes.
It's one of those scenes where it's literally like, oh, this is why you have the snake in the first place, is because you came up with the way to neutralize the snake problem. It's one of those things too where everyone is afraid of the thing except for the woman who's going to be killed by the thing, which is fine. I understand that you got to make your star and your hero like the toughest person in the room.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where like, okay, everybody's got to be calm right now. Everybody, let's all just be Fonzie right now, like that kind of thing. And that's fine. That's cool. But here is the thing about the show that like we haven't really touched on yet, is that it is so watchable in how crazy the whole thing is.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like, the best way to describe it is my kids started watching Dragon Ball Z in the middle of a season.
Oh boy.
And so I couldn't understand anything that was happening on the show, and it made the show great because it was like, what are we watching? And that is one of the things that's so great about this show, is that you watch it and you're literally like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and I can't believe that they went for it, and it's great. The snake thing being one of them, where they come up with the solution for how you get rid of a snake is with a saucer of milk, and the snake is more interested in the saucer of milk than in the leg, which I don't know if that's true. I'm not a snake guy. I don't know.
Well, in the first draft,
like complete crap.
It does.
In the first draft, it was a kitten in the box, and they forgot to update it.
Look,
I definitely know if you're attacked by a kitten, a saucer of milk can help. But I also like there's a $50 tip in it for the bellboy if he gets up there with a saucer and milk and takes his shoes off. And the way he is so excited to get up there so quick, I honestly believe he thinks he's going to get adult relations out of this visit.
Well,
I mean, he really is awfully eager to get those shoes. He shows up before she hangs up the phone. He's outside the door.
Well, it's her fault. She gave he needs to be up here in 60 seconds. 60 seconds? You rode an elevator to your room, lady.
But he gets there. That's the crazy part.
It's
what you
takes
guys
his
aren't
shoes
thinking
off.
about is that $50 would buy you a Honda motorcycle in the 70s.
It's true.
Oh man, but it's just the giggle on his face. Like he really looks like he thinks he's going to get up to some naughty business with that milk and saucer and lady. And then he goes in and sees the snake, and it's like the most awful thing you could imagine ever seeing in your life is a snake, which, I grew up in places where you sometimes see a snake unexpectedly and you don't totally lose your marbles like this guy.
I like that. I like that guy. Like he's like a combination of Eric Griffin and what's his nose? Fred Armisen. He looks like both of those guys put together.
See, they should have just had him look at her and go, lady, if you want to keep the snake involved, it's an extra 50.
Just it's absolutely ridiculous. But that's just like the big thing is that's the highest, stakes that are happening in this game is a garden snake is wrapped around her leg a little bit. Instead of throwing it, we lure it with a saucer of milk. That's it.
Here's how my memory of this show goes. I remember the snake scene. Then I'm sure some people talk about stuff. And the next thing I know, a huge package arrives at Steve Trevor's office. They're debating over what to do. Apparently, they listened to it with a stethoscope and heard a heartbeat, but they have no idea what it is. But the instructions say Steve Trevor has to open it alone. Who's going to follow those kind of vague? Do they not have X-ray machines in 1974 to X-ray the package?
Let me ask you this: how did that box get in that office?
And that is a very good question.
How did it get in the mail truck? I mean, what was it air mail? I'm starting to think, knowing where this is going, I'm thinking the price of delivering that package is at least 70% of the amount of money they could send back with it.
Can you
really
imagine
a lot of
how
overhead.
out of its mind that donkey would be once they put it in the box because they airlifted it out of there?
It would have been kicking and going
He took
nuts.
a helicopter ride, hitched to a helicopter. That thing would be out of its mind.
And all they heard was a heartbeat. I think you put a stethoscope to that box. You're hearing I'm pretty sure you hear donkey fart noises and pooping and some wild braying. I'm thinking a donkey in a box is a noisy thing.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it in a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that donkey probably did a bit more stomping in that thing as opposed to just standing there. But we'll get to that.
But then I like it though. He says, "Well, the instructions say I have to open it all by myself." And they said, "What if there's an assassin in there?" And I'm thinking, there's got to be a way better way to get an assassin there. I'm thinking maybe it's a really big snake. I don't know what's in there.
But even in the
Why
same,
does this box smell like donkey urine?
but
and then he opens it, and it's a donkey. And I didn't remember this movie very well. So when I see the donkey, I'm clapping and laughing and rolling back and forth. I'm thrilled that there's a donkey in the box. And then they do this thing where the camera pans in on the donkey's eyes, and then it pans in on Steve Trevor's eyes like they're giving each other mean mug stink eyes stare down or something. I'm like, did he just 70s stare down a donkey in a box? And at this point, I'm like, I don't know what I missed, but I'm glad I missed it because there's no explanation as good as just simply being caught off guard by a donkey in a box in a government building. This is the version. I wish the Unabomber, instead of sending bombs to government buildings, had just sent donkeys, because then he would be a beloved folk hero instead of a criminal.
And we would have Unidonkey Day.
The Unidonker.
But it's so dumb.
And this is when the movie really starts getting good, is when the donkey makes an appearance. Because even when they're starting to explain why the donkey's there, it's making no sense to me.
Well, first of all, the fact that you think that that's when it gets good. What about the twins, and one's a man and one's a woman?
Nowhere near as good as
a million different things that happened before that.
The only conclusion I could draw for a long time after the donkey shows up is they're just calling Steve Trevor a jackass. This is just this is something the Riddler would do, just an insult to Steve Trevor. They're calling him a donkey. And then later they're saying, well, look at where the location is. It's in the mountains of Nevada. A donkey's perfect for that. And I'm like, wait, did they send you a donkey to ride so you could catch him? It's making no sense. And then I slowly start to realize that the best way, instead of a dead drop with the cash or something weird like they would do in a more modern movie, the plan is they're going to put whatever amount of cash you can fit in a saddlebag, throw it over the donkey, and the donkey's going to walk back to the evil lair. And at this point, I think he's just going to walk there from DC. I don't even realize they're going to go to a drop-off point at this. And I'm thinking, I know inflation is a lot, but even with $100 bills, you can't fit that much money in those donkey saddlebags, right?
Operation Donkey Drop.
So they're supposed to be in Washington, D.C.?
I'm assuming, or New York or somewhere like that. I mean, it's a government business. I mean, obviously they're in Hollywood. They're in Los Angeles, sure, no matter where they're supposed to be. Even she goes to France for no real reason. I still can't figure out what she accomplished by going to France other than going to a swimming pool that was obviously a Malibu house that's supposed to be in France, where the fence is electrified, but also the exposed wires so you can turn it off. Might as well have the on and off switch right by the fence.
A lot of really great grainy, scratchy film of archived stuff for that they're showing. Just be like, hey, look, we're in France. Here's some grainy footage that we got from the archive department that shows France, because clearly we ain't going to France.
She goes to France. The whole time she's in France, an elevator comes open, and I think maybe one of the twins or something comes in, and she like karate kicks them, and they go out. Then she goes to the swimming pool and escapes, and then she's back in America. And I can't figure out that she accomplished anything.
She kicks the guy's butt in the hotel or in the elevator there and everything, and then it's just business as usual.
And also, they have this thing. They start introducing the bad guy, the Blofeld wannabe bad guy. And they don't show his face, so it's supposed to be a reveal when we see him, I guess. But there are few voices from the 1970s more distinguishable, you know what I mean, more readily identifiable than Ricardo Montalban. I mean, he didn't say Rich Corinthian leather, but that's all that was missing.
Well, but doesn't he, because he isn't really super well known in America at this point, because he's not on Fantasy Island yet, and he's not in Wrath of Khan. He's basically a character actor at this point, yeah?
He was in Space Seed, so any Star Trek fans, because I would imagine in 1974, the overlap of people who watch Star Trek, the original series, and people who tune in on a Tuesday night to watch Wonder Woman, I think there's a lot of overlap there.
I think you're right.
Probably, yeah.
I would think you're right.
So he was in, he played Khan in the original series in the 60s. So
right.
And also, I'm convinced that he actually owns that white suit, and that's why I continued to use it in both this movie and Fantasy Island about 5 years later.
Yeah, I love the thought that he just dresses himself, and he's like, he goes to costume department, and he's like, no, I already have my costume, thank you.
If you'll excuse me.
My thought was that they weren't trying to hide it as a reveal, watching it with sort of modern meta knowledge. I think he just wasn't willing to do all the shoots. So they had somebody sort of looks like him that they shot from behind. He did some voiceover, and they had it for a good day on set.
That did cross my mind. I was just like, I wonder if he's even in these shots. I mean, because we see hands and we hear a voice, but it might not be.
And he definitely isn't. He's definitely not.
And even though he's not as big of a star in 1974 as he would be by 1980, I bet you there's a good chance he's still the highest paid person we see on screen in this show.
Oh, without a doubt, man.
But yeah, back to the delivery plan of the donkey. I don't know. Did you guys think that was a great idea? Did you have any clue exactly what's going on with the donkey?
They literally say slap him on the butt and he'll just go.
I think it's perfect with everything else that they've done in this show.
And I had this weird thought, like this never got picked up to series. But then I started wondering, because this pilot is essentially 2 episodes. And we had a snake episode and a donkey episode. Like, were they going to make this sort of like an animal themed show? Like every episode was an animal going to be key to the plot?
We've got an orangutan. What do we do with it? Put it in an episode of Wonder Woman.
I mean, if all the crimes were facilitated by animals, that could have just been the cheesy gimmick this show needed to be a hit.
Well, see, that's
wasn't
when
Mutual of Omaha real big back then?
But in season 2, then that's when you bring in Animal Man.
What was the name of that guy from Mutual of Omaha? He could have been the big bad because, Montalban wasn't doing anything beyond the pilot.
No idea. Listen, I'm too young for that. But the best part is how these guys, they go, hey, we want the money. Put it in this donkey, so far over elaborate, slap it on the butt, and then they wait. They're just waiting for a donkey to show up. I've never seen so much onus put on a donkey. And
then Wonder Woman finally puts on her costume. And I was wondering, did I miss something? Like, did she get a package? Because, the one lady from the other lady from Paradise Island, Themyscira, whatever they're calling it in this show, who's one of her former colleagues amongst the Amazons, comes up to tell her, oh, so-and-so escaped. She's a bad guy now. Be on the lookout. I was also seeing, did she give her a package I didn't see or something? Like, is there an in-story explanation for why she cracks out the costume when she goes to follow the donkey? Did I miss something?
It was around the second half act, and they were just like, we got to break out this costume at some point.
Yeah, because that would have been a good time. It's like, she comes to tell her, the Amazon lady comes to tell her that she now has an evil Amazonian on the loose. And, oh, by the way, your mother sent this, and gives her a package, and she opens it. It's the costume, and that's why she puts it on. They didn't do anything to make me feel like that costume mattered, other than she kind of – Evel Knievel was a big deal back then. It kind of has an Evel Knievel look to it. She does get on a motorcycle.
Yeah. Oh, it's completely stolen from Evel Knievel, man. The I'm looking at his biography, Ricardo Montalban, and it's weird because he really is just he's like a villain of the week guy for all these episodic TV shows. And then he also does a lot of genre stuff. So like you said, he's on Star Trek, but then he's also in the movie Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, and he's a big role in that. And it's just so weird to see that, for some reason, I was thinking he was a much bigger deal, but he really did get pretty famous. Like all of his fame came in like the 70s and early 80s.
On TV and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm still thinking about the money. His motivation is money. Even at the very end, his motivation seems to be money. I'm thinking in those saddlebags, which weren't huge, you're not even getting $1 million worth of $100 bills in there, right? I mean, you're getting maybe a few $100,000. And he's had to pay for air. He's had to pay for air transportation for one donkey to wherever their headquarters are, that I'm just going to call DC or New York. I think in the comics it was Boston, so we'll call it Boston. And then he also has to purchase decoy donkeys, which is interesting because the donkey goes in one side of the cave while Wonder Woman's following it. Out the other side, about 3 donkeys that look similar come out. Then a donkey that looks absolutely nothing like the original donkey comes out. And then there's like another donkey. And I'm thinking, so whatever his budget is, he's eating away at it with his donkey costs. Like he's spending way too much. I'd like it if he had an accountant or an advisor, a criminal accountant come in and say, here's your problem. Your overhead's killing you. I mean, look how much you spent on donkeys alone last month.
Donkey feed is it's just so expensive. Why would you put this in there? Why was that the thing you do?
And also, I don't know that I would qualify as a donkey behavior expert.
You're as close as we got on this show.
I happen to know if you got a group of 5 donkeys, they're all going to kind of like follow each other. They're not going to go 5 different directions. So that sort of does away with the point of a decoy if they all go to the same place.
Listen, didn't that Superman episode where everyone walks around with a paper mache helmet teach you anything?
Yeah, that's true. I did like the Brainy Burrow better.
These donkeys should be wearing helmets.
But I like the idea that Ricardo Montalban didn't think his plan all the way through, and the donkeys don't look alike, and they all go the same direction, so it doesn't really matter which one you follow. And we probably need to go to the end of this movie, right?
Yes, because nothing happens.
And she finally confronts Ricardo Montalban, and we get to see him in his young glory. He was a handsome young man, but also I didn't realize that he's like 5'3".
I am not a very big man, but I am a very passionate man.
He always looks so tall next to Hervé Villachez that I didn't realize he's actually not a tall guy.
That's how you get your careers. You go next to Hervé, and then you're just like, what a big strapping man that guy is.
Yeah, but and then his escape plan. Of course, George tries to double cross him. She has to do something where her magic lasso, she pulls it out of her belt and uses it like a grappling hook to climb over
magic
a little thing.
Rope at best.
and then getaway. He has a getaway plan. Plan A is a helicopter, which is fueled up. And she does something with her magic bracelet that causes the helicopter to explode. And then I'm thinking, if he had any money left, if he had any profit margin at all after the donkey expenses, you blow up a helicopter's a darn expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah.
I dare say, dollar for dollar, adjusted for inflation, more expensive in 1974 than even today.
Yeah, probably.
So any profit he's made on this scheme goes up in smoke when the helicopter blows up. And if you need any further proof, Plan B for his escape is an inflatable child's toy. Like there is no redundancy. Like he has nothing but an inflatable raft once the helicopter goes up in smoke.
In real life, how deep do you think that water was? I'm gonna guess it wasn't even 6 inches.
And then I kind of want to know, like, I wish he had done this thing like in Batman 66. The villains would talk to themselves because they couldn't put thought bubbles on the screen, so they would have them like just talk out loud to themselves like a crazy person, so you'd know what they were thinking. I wanted to hear him say, I'm going to paddle this inflatable raft all the way to Peru. Like how far was he planning to paddle? Like, did he really think he could escape anyone with one oar. And I'm telling you, Ricardo Montalban, not a big guy, barely fits in this inflatable raft. Like, it's a glorified inner tube.
It's not big. And the thing is, it's so slow. Like, they couldn't even give him a speedboat. We're literally going to give you an inflatable boat that you're going to row down in the thing. Like, this is your getaway device? You did not think
like a
this
novelty
through.
oar you would use in a play or something. It's not even like a real oar that he has to paddle with.
It's pathetic. And then we get this big thing of like, oh, she's like, I'll say this though, she steals the motorcycle and everything, and rich man, poor man, a vehicle inside your house. That's a good one. But she is flying, and it's clearly a stunt person on the back of this motorcycle because the butt never hits the seat, and like somebody who really knows how to drive is really doing this. And then we get back to her. And eventually,
see, there's a part of me that thinks that's why she got the role, because she's a butt-kicking dirt bike rider. Like, in auditions, she just showed up on a dirt bike. They didn't even have it planned to be in the show. And they're like, man, did you see Kathy Lee Crosby riding that dirt bike? We got to add that to the script. She's got it.
She's throwing wheelies down in the hallway. We don't know what's going on. But she dives off of this thing. We think that we're going to see this awesome thing where she's just like, smashes him inside of the little inflatable tube there and everything. But no, she just comes up from underneath the water and is basically like, gotcha. And he's like, well, I guess I've been had. And that's it.
And they don't even play it for laughs. Like he should have said, maybe I should have taken the dirt bike. Like, I'd like to see Ricardo Montalban escaping on a dirt bike instead of a inflatable raft with a baby oar.
It would have made a little bit more sense, I think. But, whatever.
And as slow as he was going, she didn't need the dirt bike. I think she's in good shape. I'm pretty sure she could have swam up to him.
Yeah, she really did take the long way around to kind of get to him if we're thinking about it.
It looked like she jumped on a dirt bike, rode out of the lair, rode all the way around the mountain, and then back to where the outlet of the stream is to catch him. And honestly, I'm pretty sure she could have swam up to him.
He's going the slowest that it's possibly, allowed on the ocean or lake or wherever they are. But and that's
Ricardo
about
Montalban reveals that his name is Abner. So I can't think of a less Abner person than Ricardo Montalban. Like, Abner makes me think of like the old Little Abner cartoon strips. Abner seems like a very rural American name, not a name I would expect Ricardo Montalban to have as Abner.
I just think of Bewitched, because the neighbor there is like, Abner.
Yeah, sounds about right.
No, that's where I get. But she jumps off. She says, "You're under arrest, sugar," and then that's it. That's the film. And then they said, we're going to make a lot of these, and then they didn't. Well, before we get to the final, review here and everything, we do have one more very important portion of this program, and that is when we relate this comic book, movie, or television show back 1-to-1 to Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. By 2003, Sylvester Stallone was on the other side. No longer the megalomaniacal on-set diva he had become synonymous with. We started getting a new Stallone, a fatherly Stallone. And when the director of Spy Kids 3D, Robert Rodriguez, announced that Sylvester Stallone would be the villain in Spy Kids 3D, it raised some eyebrows. When Rodriguez claimed he was a joy to work with, America collectively said, really? And I, for one, was wondering what the hell was going on. And then Rodriguez dropped a bomb. He described Stallone using the F word, a word that has never been associated with Stallone. And that word was funny. He said that when he first met with Stallone, he went to lunch with him, and he found Stallone to be a warm, interesting, and shockingly funny man. The reason why I'm making so much hay about this is because I've seen Stallone's comedies. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot has become a sort of curio, like A Shrunken Head or A Hermaphrodite. No one's watching that movie because it's great. And he was on Saturday Night Live, and his appearance is fun to watch, but it's more because it's weird seeing him out there, like a dog riding a skateboard. But now it's 2019, and Stallone is funny, even about his own career. And my crackpot theory is that it all started here with Spy Kids 3D, because I like this Stallone. George Clooney does a Stallone impression, and a good one, and the same movie Stallone is in. And he looks like he's having fun. He looks like a guy who's not only enjoying himself, but he's in on the joke. And I'm not going to pretend this movie is good. It's awful. But Selma Hayek's in it and Carla Gugino are in it, if that's how you say her last name. And that's a lot of hot for one movie.
It is.
Ricardo Montalban is also in Spy Kids 3D, weirdly playing the exact same character he played in Wonder Woman 1974. Now, true, they don't have the same name and the performances are 30 years apart, but bro, it's the same dude. Ricardo Montalban seemed old when I was a child. So just how old was Ricardo Montalban? Well, his first credited acting role is in a Three Musketeers movie that came out while World War II was in full swing. He died in 2009 and worked right up to the very end doing voiceover work for what feels like one of the 17 Seth MacFarlane shows, American Dad. But what Ricardo Montalban is best known for is In the Eye of the Viewer. He was on Fantasy Island. He was Khan in Wrath of Khan. He played the bad guy in the first Naked Gun movie. And when I was a fetus, he was on commercials for years hawking Chryslers in their rich Corinthian leather. And I looked it up. Corinthian leather is a made-up term that literally means nothing. It just sounded good. And there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone connection is none other than Ricardo Montalban. Thank you. I'm Sean Kovacs. Thank you.
Thank you. But before we get down to our big Robin rating system here, we'd like to have you check out and know what the heck we're talking about when we say these things. So why don't you head on over to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast, see what the Robin rating system is, break it down for yourself, and throw the page a like while you're there. Bruce, where does Wonder Woman 1974 fall on the Robin rating system for you?
Well, I think how much you like this movie is going to be directly proportional to how much you like donkey-centric action. So I'm a fan of the donkey-centered ridiculous. It's slow-paced, man.
No.
That's one thing. If you're not prepared for these 70s made-for-TV things, like it's not quite as slow-paced as Doctor Strange, but this is slow-paced. We probably made it sound pretty exciting, but everything we described happens over like an hour and 45 minutes. Most of what we talked about is the final 15 minutes.
There's so much standing around in this film.
But there's weird stuff. And if you like weird stuff, which I do, I mean, this is right up there with the David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury movie. That's how much I like this. So this is a good, solid Tim Drake plus a donkey, so watch at your own risk. If you're not a donkey fan, it might not do it for you. If you like the brainy burro, you will love Wonder Woman 1974. So Tim Drake.
Tim Drake riding a donkey. That's Bruce's rating, Sean.
I'm a little indifferent towards the donkey, and I love the show. We didn't even mention the 15-minute long spear fight.
The world's least interesting spear fight.
Where clearly neither of the actresses are comfortable with the spear in their hands. We don't mention the fact that a lot of this movie takes place in dull gray offices where everything is gray and disgusting looking.
Well, that being said, there is a lot of great mid-century modern furniture in this show.
That is true. There is a lot of great furniture.
I really like a lot of the. I'm watching this and go like, oh, I love this office. The walls and everything are terrible, but the furniture's fantastic.
Yeah,
we never even mentioned either. The spear fight is against one of the Price is Right girls from the 70s.
Is that right?
That's where I know her from.
Yeah, she actually would not make a bad Wonder Woman Halloween costume or something. Anitra Ford was her name.
I didn't know. I didn't recognize her without a Maytag next to her.
Why ain't she playing Plinko? So but I love everything about this. It is ridiculous. It is awful. It is a great reason to have a podcast so that you can go, I've got to watch this, honey. It's for the show. So I give this a full on Dick Grayson because good God Almighty, this really just hit my fancy.
I have to do this a little bit objectively. I'm gonna go high Stephanie Brown on this because only really because like Bruce said, there's a lot of standing around in this movie. There is a lot of dead space. It is an enjoyable dead space because it does leave you scratching your head going, what's going on here? These are the choices that they made. Why did they do this? It's certainly worth watching on account of all that because that is weird, strange stuff. But hi, Stephanie Brown for me. I'd say check it out. It is on the DC streaming app and everything, so check it out there.
And Adam, I want you to make me a GIF that's just the donkey and Steve Trevor giving each other stink eye. Like, just isolate that second and make me a GIF, and I'll be happy forever.
I'll see what I can do. Yeah, so that is it, everybody. Next week, you heard us earlier in the show talking about the people that support the show over at patreon.com/HMP. Well, if you are one of those fine people, at any level, you are able to vote on the movie that we'll be watching next week. And here is the list. We have Batman versus Dracula. That's an animated program. We have something called Super Lopez. No one's quite sure what that is, but it's got the word Super and Lopez in it, and I saw a guy looking at a super suit, so that means something. Will also be, as an option, Bumblebee, Nightman, and, of course, the perennial all-star, The Spirit, starring Sam J. Jones. So all of those will be up for vote over at patreon.com/HMP. Remember, you just need to be a member of that, even at any level, even at the $1 level. Hey, $1 a month for the ability to weave the fortune of this podcast. A small price to pay, I must say. In the meantime, Bruce, where may we find more of your work on the internet?
Just check out Chubby Wizard. We got new episodes most every week. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about the Suicide Squad casting. So if people want to hear our 2 cents on who we think some of those folks are going to play or what our thoughts are, or if we've never heard of that actor before, you can go listen to that.
Sean?
Oh, Sweet Shawnee's on the internet. Sweet Shawnee can be reached at Twitter at Sean Kovacs 4 on Twitter. I post something every day. It's usually a bit of hilarity, but please come by and befriend me on the Twitter.
The man can't be stopped. And, of course, Preacher Podcast, man. We got 2 episodes left. We are winding it up. So do check out Preacher Podcast. That comes out every Tuesday and Wednesday. So check that out, everybody. That's it. Until next week when we're talking our Patreon selection. For Sean Kovacs, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore. And I know too much to go back and pretend. 'Cause I've heard it all before, and I've been down there on the floor. No one's ever gonna keep me down again. Whoa, yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom for the pain. Yes, I paid the price, but look how much I gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong. It only serves to make me